starting in 5 seconds. Now, I would like to say that with this measure, we are now adopting to my mind, it will not be possible to have this system or any other system functioning effectively. The number of clauses that we have included are so restrictive and rigid that it will not be possible for any system to function in this country. If at all it is able to function, it will be able to function with a lot of difficulties. It will be said afterwards that the industrial sector, particularly the private sector, has not been able to deliver the goods. I would like to warn the government that if anything happens in the future in which industrial production or production in the private sector has not gone up, it would be not because of any lack of efforts on the part of the private sector, but because of the measure that we are now adopting. I have mentioned several times how this particular bill is very restrictive and how it will hamper the normal growth of companies in this country. It is pity that when we are on the threshold of the second 5-year plan, such a measure should be passed in this house. I would now like to make a few observations about the speech of some of the honorable members here. Shri Ashoka Mehta justifies the restrictions on managing agents by saying that managing agents are no longer the main source of finance. He also argues that profits have been high and will continue to remain high, and therefore he would like to see the managing agents being paid on a sliding scale. He is in the habit of referring to a number of books and making quotations from a number of them published in America or in other countries, and particularly by some of the professors. I would also like to mention to him that even when companies are floated, it requires a certain amount of confidence amongst the investing public, and it is because a particular firm is managing a particular company that this confidence is created in the investing public. Even there, as the Honorable Finance Minister has said, there is a sort of overall tight control. New banks and insurance companies are not floated nowadays. What you have are the few banks which are existing and the few insurance companies that are existing. The other point is that the credit worthiness of the managing agency firm does count to a certain extent in getting credit from the banks and other financial institutions. Yesterday, I was mentioned by my honorable friend that the crux of the problem is the question of payment of remuneration to a particular managing agency system. He said that in this bill, a definite encouragement has been given to the alternative type of management, namely the managing director or the manager, where an individual has been permitted to take 5%, while in the case of the managing agency, it has been permitted to take about 10%. I would like to point out to him that it is not merely the question of remuneration which will decide the alternative type of management. The remuneration is not a very important thing unless and until you allow a certain amount of flexibility for any system to function. It will not be possible to evolve any other system to take the place of the managing agency system. In spite of so many shackles, you may find that those few business houses which are carrying on now may have to carry on the present basis. You may not find many new people coming in the field. Several times it has been mentioned in this house why the business community has not prescribed for itself a code of conduct. In this connection, I would like to point out that a degree of diploma is essential for the profession, and in case of violation of the code, sanction should be provided by it to prevent a person from practicing the profession. Today, even Ashoka Mehta and Sri C.C. Shah can set up a grocery shop and become businessmen. Nobody lays down any condition for starting business, and nobody can prevent others from continuing it. But I would like to point out that with regard to the code of conduct, there is a certain amount of ethics and there are certain standards and traditions on which business house function. If a particular firm has not got proper ways of managing its business, you will find that business house will find it difficult to function, and it would be difficult for it to command the confidence of the business community. It would not be possible for it to function as effectively as a firm which has proper ways of managing its business. That is sufficient as a code of conduct. It is not possible to prescribe a certain code of conduct in the manner it has been done for the profession in general. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, the budget has been variously described and criticized as one that increases the burden of the common man, one which gives concessions to the rich and encourages foreign investments. I agree, sir, that it is all this and much more. But it certainly is not a highwayman's budget. To my mind, sir, the budget is sincere, conscientious, and at the same time, it is a bold effort on the part of the finance minister who is charged with heavy responsibility of finding resources for the third 5-year plan. This plan, to my mind, sir, is not at all ambitious in view of our needs. It may be looked upon as a rather heavy demand, but looking to our needs, it is not very ambitious. Sir, the fact that even the consideration of the coming general elections could not delected the finance minister from the course which seemed to him necessary and proper should earn him the appreciation of every right thinking man. The common man's interest, as I said, is nearer to our hearts than perhaps some others can claim, or at least it is equally nearer to us, and yet there come times in a nation's history when it becomes necessary for the people to postpone the fruits of their labor and enterprise to secure the future. Here also, sir, opinions may differ. According to the Communist Party, such a time came during the last Great War when they were exhorting people, the common people, to contribute their full might to the war effort. According to us, however, sir, we are passing through such a time at the present moment, and I have no doubt that the common people appreciate this position and will willingly tighten their belts, contribute their full might, and will surely return the Congress to a power having full confidence in the future and looking to a future where their posterity will be assured of far better social and economic order. Who, sir, does not sympathize with the difficulties of the common man? As a matter of fact, most of us come from the that class, and I am sure the finance minister would have linked to do away with some of the levies. None would have been happier if he could have done without these new levies, but there are, sir, certain very imperative limitations. We are passing through a critical period. Sir, it may not be necessary to continue these levies for a long time. Rather, I am inclined to think that before long it may be possible to give up some of them at least. I have very valid reasons to think so. Our public undertakings are coming to their own, and some of our important irrigation and power projects have just been completed. Some others are nearing completion, and in due course, I think in the very near future, they must be yield returns. This will go a long way to lighten the burden of the common man. We might, sir, also resort to some other ways. I suggest that we might take to public trading in some specific items of export and import. That would also certainly go a long way and help us. The private corporate sector has been steadily growing and has been developing capacity. It is sure to benefit from all these present concessions and develop greater capacity. This sector must come forward to meet new demands for taxation in the future. I agree that so far as indirect taxation is concerned, it has reached the saturation point, but the corporate sector growing as it is in strength, in vitality, and in capacity will not, I am sure, shirk its responsibility to contribute to the common fund. I wish, sir, the committee which had been appointed to go into where the additional national income had gone had entered upon its laborers a bit earlier and had made its findings available to us. I do not want to state its funding, but I have a feeling that the committee, when it concludes its labor, will come to the conclusion that a major portion of this additional national income has gone into the pockets of a comparatively small number of men, small number of individuals, and it is they who must in future contribute their share to the country's taxation needs, because the profits they have earned are not all due to their own efforts and enterprise only. To a very large measure, they are the result of economic policies of the government and due to certain other circumstances to which they did not contribute anything. Therefore, there is a ample justification for the two taxes, the capital gains tax and the excess profit tax. I need not go in detail into all the reasons that my honorable friend has explained earlier so lucidly, but I must say that I entirely agree with them all. Having said this, I would like to say a few words about allocation which have been made to the various ministries in the budget. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, several questions raised regarding the Defense Ministry and the External Affairs and Irrigation Ministries have been clarified by my colleagues from those ministries. My task, therefore, has been simplified to that extent. Before I go to the questions, financial and economic, raised by several honorable members, I should like to clarify one or two points which are more administrative than economic or financial. One of them was raised by my honorable friend. He raised the question about the recruitment by the assistant superintendent, departmental competitive examination, and particularly about the examination held in 1960. He said that about rupees 6 lakhs were spent for the 1960 examination, and later it was declared that no vacancies were available. He therefore suggested that a definite procedure should be there and the examination should be held according to the vacancies declared in advance, and all persons who have qualified in that examination should be eligible for promotion or for appointment. Sir, I do not know whether the honorable member knows how these vacancies are filled. He probably refers to the section officers grade in the Central Secretariat service. This is filled 50% by direct recruitment and 25% by departmental competitive examination open to the assistants, the next lower grade, and the rest 25% by promotion of the assistants on the basis of seniority subject to fitness. The examination, therefore, that he was referring to was a departmental competitive examination for filling 25% of the vacancies. It takes about 1 year for the Union Public Service Commission to declare the results of the examination from the time they take up the question of the examination. It is not therefore possible to declare the number of vacancies to be filled in from the very beginning. To declare them just when the results are out is more realistic and that is what is done. Sir, if the examination is treated as qualifying examination, the number of persons who will thus become eligible for appointment will be quite unrelated to the number of vacancies to be filled in, and then the very situation which the honorable member wishes to avoid would arise. It would not then be possible to hold any of the examinations at regular intervals, and promotions against this quota would become very fitful. The honorable friend members also suggested that the rules for recruitment and promotion etc. should be uniform for all ministries, whether participating in the Central Secretariat Service scheme or not. It must be, and this is so except for the Ministry of External Affairs and the Railways. These have different rules, but these rules are very much similar and there is not much difference. But because these persons are recruited for different purposes and by different agencies, they are separate. Therefore, his purpose in saying that there should be uniformity is almost carried out. The only difference is that the Ministry of Home Affairs does not control the services in these two ministries. Then, sir, questions were raised about backward areas and the backward states, and also about the city of Calcutta. If the budget is properly scrutinized, it would be found that assistance is provided for the states, particularly the backward states, and the Financial Commission, which assess the overall requirements of the states, takes this into consideration and makes its recommendations, which are carried out every time the Finance Commission's recommendations are received, and they are received periodically according to the Constitution. Sir, I would like to give the total amount paid to the states on this account. The main objective of planning is to create conditions in which living standards are raised in a sufficiently reasonable level and all citizens are given full and equal opportunity for growth and service. The plans seek to provide a balanced emphasis on increase in production and employment. The development plans are thus accepted as the means for ensuring equitable development in the field of social services. There is no reason to suppose that the needs of the less fortunate or prosperous states are being neglected, but it would not be proper to expect that all these differences could be wiped out. Now, immediately, it must be seen whether we are going towards that very end or not. We are deliberately going towards that end, and we hope and trust that in course of time these inequalities would be wiped out, if not completely wiped out, at any rate they would be lessened. My honorable friend complained about inadequate provision included in the plan for meeting the growing requirements of the city of Calcutta, where even the basic services like water supply, sewage disposal, and drainage were not being augmented, and that the central government was not enthusiastic about solving these difficulties. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Mr. Vice Chairman, I wish the matter had not come up for discussion in this House in the form in which it has come, because we will be discussing, it appears, the same subject more or less piecemeal in connection with the other two bills as well. What was necessary for the government in this connection was to provide for a journal discussion on the report of the Finance Commission, the kind of thing that we have on such reports, and after hearing the views of the members here, they should have formulated a bill. Even if they had formulated the bill earlier, the bill should have been preceded by a discussion on the report. It would then have given us an opportunity of dealing with this rather important subject in our public finance and indeed in our national life. But now we are asked to treat this matter piecemeal and deal with the bill as it comes separately. I say, sir, this would not seem very fair. It is true that we have had two other reports of the Finance Commission, and that we have had certain opportunities of discussing the issues raised by the Finance Commission on previous occasions, but that should not have precluded a thorough discussion of the third report, more especially after the experience of the two 5-year plans, and generally also after the experience of the states in the matter of public finance and as regards relations between the states and the center. All I can say is that the government does not understand the magnitude of the problem or the urgency or the seriousness of the issues involved. It is possibly because they think that all the state governments are under their control, and that the state governments would toe the line whatever is laid down from here. Suppose, sir, today a number of states had been outside the control of the same party which controls the central government, problems would have become acute because conflicts between the state governments controlled by certain other parties and those controlled by the Congress party, which controls the central government, would have arisen sharply, calling for a thorough discussion and mutual consultation in a different way. Once they can get past whatever they like, and also once it is passed, the state will more or less accept without any protest the dispensation of the center. Now that the bill is before us, we have to speak on this subject rather on the journal themes, yet I would like to make certain journal observations in this connection because the basis of the bill is the report of the Third Finance Commission. This is a long standing issue facing the public finance of the country. Those who have studied economics will know well how this matter had come up even during the British time, when we did not have either independence or any kind of autonomy in the states. Even in that setup, even at that time, the state governments functioning under the British felt that something should be done with regard to adjustment of finances, especially in regard to the relations between the center and the states. There had been a long standing controversy as to how the taxes, especially the income tax, should be divided between the center and the states. I do not deny the existence of the controversy, and this controversy is not easy to resolve. I entirely agree, but I should have thought that the Third Finance Commission should be tried to face the problems before it, not more or less in a routine manner, but in the context of the new things, not only as they are today, but as they are going to shape in the coming future. We have got what is called a quasi-federal constitution. I do not say federal constitution, although the spirit is there, but a quasi-federal constitution because most of the powers, many of the powers that should remain with the states are now in the hands of the central government. Therefore, in that way, it is more unitary in character than federal. At the same time, structurally speaking, we have got the state assemblies, legislatures, state budgets, and so on. They function more or less in the same way. But if you go a little deeper into the affairs, it would immediately lead you to think that the states do not have any substantial real power, especially in the matter of finance. Perhaps at the time when the constitution was framed, this aspect did not figure very much in the minds of the makers of the Constitution. We had just become free, and the concept of welding India into a solid nation was uppermost in the minds of those people who framed the Constitution and all others as well. In that background, it was quite understandable that it should be the dominant thought as to how to put the different segments of our country into a whole, namely the Indian Union. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Coming to the internal affairs of the country, Madam Deputy Chairman, the policies of the Government of India for the last 15 years have been so manipulated that the rich people are becoming richer and the poorer sections of the people are becoming still poorer. The committee that has been appointed to investigate into the question of the distribution of income has not yet given its verdict, but it is common knowledge that the people who are in the higher ups have become more rich and the people in the lower rung have become poorer. The prices of essential commodities that the peasants and the workers use have gone up so high that they are not within the reach of the mass of the people of the country. Government have not taken adequate steps to bring down the prices and to stabilize the prices as was recommended by the Food Grains Committee. We are now in the third plan, while the first plan are progressing. The number of the unemployed in the country is increasing. This is a very anomalous position. It is the government alone that can explain why, in spite of the plans, the unemployment problem is becoming more and more acute. As was rightly pointed out yesterday by some speakers, our agriculture has not been paid due attention that should have been paid to in the country where 80% of the people live on land. Some 3 or 4 years back, when Mr. Ajit Prasad Jain was the Food and Agriculture Minister, he was made to resign under shady circumstances as one who had proved not capable of solving the food problem in the country. A suggestion was thrown that the portfolio of agriculture should be handled by an important and senior member of the cabinet, and particularly in the states by the chief ministers of the states. But nothing of the sort has happened. Whatever increase in food grains output we have obtained is not because of any increase in the yield per acre, but because of extensive cultivation. More land has been brought under cultivation and some irrigation facilities have now been provided, but the increase that we have seen is not in keeping with the demand that is necessary for us to feed 400 millions in India. So, whatever industrial development we want, the basic factor is that our agricultural economy should be improved. For that, all efforts should be made, more fertilizers should be used, and new methods of cultivation should be employed for growing more food crops and for growing other cash crops. In a review that was published by the Planning Commission itself, they have pointed out that there is acute shortage of power in more than 50% of the states in India. We have accepted a planned economy. We have completed 2 plans and we are now in the 3rd plan. I do not know why the Planning Commission or the planners concerned did not foresee this shortage of power in most of the states in India, and why they did not plan generation of more power so that people will not accuse the state governments or the Planning Commission that they did not work out the plans properly in order to have more industries and to have more food grains produced through lift irrigation. In most of the states in Andhra, in West Bengal, in Bihar, in Karnataka, there is power shortage. Whatever power is available now is being rationed. There are thousands of units of small scale industries which are not working for want of power, and there are thousands of lift irrigation pumps which are denied power supply for purposes of irrigating their lands, and wherever power is supplied, it is supplied during nights, which is not very convenient to make use of the power and use the power for agricultural purposes. The finance minister, in the statement that he made in the Lok Sabha and which was placed before us, has stated that it was assessed that for the successful implementation of the plan, even after taking every possible measure for the development of our exports, which clearly must be given the highest priority, we would need external assistance of the order of rupees 2600 crores, and we have, however, been less successful in obtaining and utilizing the external assistance required for financing the imports necessary for our developing economy. To industrialize our country and to bring it on par with other well developed countries, we do need assistance, financial, technical, and other assistance. The finance minister was so hopeful that he was getting rupees 2600 crores of foreign aid from Aid India Club and other countries. but now he is not hopeful of getting that amount which is necessary to fulfill the targets in the third 5-year plan. Stop.